Three country legends built parts of their careers on songs they didn't write, and the man who did was already gone before the industry decided songwriters mattered. That's not a metaphor. That's what actually happened. Because when Kitty Wells, Red Foley, and Tennessee Ernie Ford all recorded your songs, history is supposed to remember your name. It didn't. And by the end of this story, the real question isn't why you've never heard of him. It's why the system made sure you wouldn't. His name was Jimmie Work, and this isn't just a story about being overlooked. Because while other people built careers, while their names became brands, Jimmie Work lost the only moment when the industry was deciding who would be remembered and who would disappear. If you leave this story early, you'll miss the part where that decision happened. Jimmie Work wasn't chasing the spotlight. He wasn't building a public image. He was building songs, carefully, patiently, and with a level of craft that made other artists want his words more than their own. That's how the imbalance began. When Kitty Wells recorded his songs, his writing gained emotional authority. When Red Foley sang them, they entered American homes. And when Tennessee Ernie Ford carried those words into gospel and mainstream audiences, those songs reached millions. But every time one of them climbed higher, Jimmie Work's name fell further out of view. And almost no one noticed it happening. This is where most music stories turn into celebration. This one doesn't. Because the public didn't ask who wrote the songs. Radio didn't say his name. And record labels had no reason to slow down something that was already working. The performer sold the record. The songwriter stayed invisible. By the early 1950s, Jimmie Work had done what most writers never do. He had multiple respected artists choosing his words over their own. But here's the cost nobody talks about. While others gained leverage, while they gained touring power and long-term security, Jimmie Work was locked into the background, with no public identity to protect him when the industry shifted. And the industry always shifts. Some people will tell you that was his choice, that he preferred the background, that he didn't want fame. Others will tell you the system never offered him a real alternative, and that argument still hasn't been settled. As folk and country music grew, something subtle started to change. Audiences began caring about authenticity. Critics started tracing songs back to their roots. Songwriters, slowly, started to matter. But timing is cruel. Because what makes this story unforgivable is that Jimmie Work lived long enough to watch the industry finally start celebrating songwriters, and realize it happened just late enough to miss him completely. That wasn't a mistake, it was the design. The door opened, and he wasn't standing in front of it anymore. Only after that shift did people start asking questions. Who wrote the songs? Where did these words come from? Why do the same names keep appearing in the credits? And when historians looked back, they found the recordings, they found the stars, but the writer's name was already fading. The system didn't fail him. Songwriters weren't the product, performers were. And once an artist became the face of a song long enough, the original voice behind it stopped mattering to the public. Jimmie Work didn't lose inside that system. He was quietly consumed by it. When later generations argued about country music's golden era, they debated voices, personalities, and performances. They rarely debated words. And yet, without those words, none of the voices would have lasted. So when you hear a familiar song from that era, and you recognize the performer instantly, ask yourself something. If those legends needed his words to reach the heights they did, why do we remember everyone except the man who wrote them? And how many other names disappeared the same way before anyone thought to look?